Okay, so Giles, um, it's been a pleasure being with you right
Yeah,
now.
nice, lovely to see you here.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
I just tried the new headphones, the Sonos Ace, and they are absolutely breathtaking.
Excellent.
I've tried other, platforms,
Yeah.
and I must say that this is beyond anything I've tried before.
Wow.
So congratulations. For
Thank
this.
you. That means such like it's such a lovely thing to hear because it's been 2 years and 2 years of like pushing and pushing and pushing.
I honestly think you achieved a new level.
Wow.
I mean, trying the head tracking and spatial sound and then going back to stereo is like flying in business and then going back to economy. I mean, you can't go back after that.
Yeah, the team's done an amazing job, and with spatial, for instance, I've been working in spatial for a long time, like a long time.
Yes.
I think I did the first spatial audio album. I think Sgt. Pepper's by the Beatles was the first Atmos album, and it's something I've been interested in. And obviously, we pushed and we did Era 300 last year, which is a good spatial, really great spatial product. What's happened with headphones is headphones started and spatial was terrible. It was terrible, but a lot of companies, have done a really good job. Mm-hmm. And we started from the ground up with our spatial technology, and the team's just done like they came to see me in my studios, and we use my studios as a test bed.
Right.
I have a full Atmos studios, and it was like, I kind of wanted to criticize them because that's my job. But it's like they're really good. It's really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. First of all, how does Sonos approach the challenge of creating spatial audio, considering the diverse and unpredictable environments of users' homes? I mean, you have, little flats, big flats, houses, small houses.
Well, yeah, that's actually the legwork.
Mm.
So the user, you have to understand that in order to create spatial audio in a pair of headphones, you have to have a room.
Yes.
There has to be a room. Now you have to be careful when spatial audio first started in headphones. That room was tended to be too false and sounded like an effect, and things sounded too far apart. And you need your headphones to be intimate. You need them to be hold you. We also realized that what should that room be? It made sense for your environment to be the room you're in. Of course, the problem is that some people's environments, like the room we're in now, is a terrible sounding room, and so you have to create a compromise. And the idea is, it's the best possible version of the room you're in. So that's the key: is that it can't be. It should feel like the same space. We can measure through microphones. We can measure the size of your room through delays and stuff. But then we can adapt that sound to making sure that you're in the right space and it sounds better than you can imagine.
Right. Now, considering that we're in an era of streaming services like Spotify, Apple Music, etc., that are prevalent, how does Sonos ensure sound quality, considering that different platforms have different
Well, I'm very fortunate because I also am head of audio and sound for Universal Music Group. So I work on both sides. So we work in what's called supply chain, which is the artists dealing with Spotify, Apple, on improving the quality of audio. And then I work with Sonos in the audio coming out to your home. So I had this kind of weird kind of double relationship.
Yeah.
Because it's key. Sound is key for me. It's not like... and so I've worked with Apple, actually. I've consulted with Apple
so
on...
you're the guy that it's making it all better.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, that's what I'm passionate about. So in essence, there's a lot of talk about audio quality, and there's a lot about compression. There's a lot of talk about how things are done. In essence, we got to a level that's pretty good. It's actually pretty lossless is pretty good now. It's like I work with some pretty big artists in studios. So I did Stones, Beach Boys, Beatles, Def Leppard, In Excess, Chemical Brothers last year. All of these artists, Metallica, I remastered the Black Album for them. We will take this content and we'll compare the source files, so 9624 in the case of that material, to the codecs, to Spotify, to Apple. This is away from Sonos. This is another one, and I make sure that with the companies, it's in their interest to be good quality. That's what people don't realize. It's in Spotify's interest to be good quality.
Hopefully,
it kind of is. I've talked to Daniel Ek about this. Then for Sonos, it's our job not to adapt that quality. So we don't want to be in a situation where we're saying we're mixing the music or anything like that. Our job, Sonos, is purely like a window, whether it's a pair of Ace headphones or a speaker. It's like you should just be able to switch on and the music flows into your home or into your headphones without any kind of character effects. So people say to me, what is the sound of Sonos? And I go, the sound of Sonos is honesty. That's what it is. It's like, it should just be a transparency. It should be that thing. And also, I let the transparency get to the extent where, despite all the research and the work we do, you don't notice you're listening to a pair of headphones. You don't notice you're listening to a pair of, you're just listening to a song or watching a film you love, and you're not thinking about
that you're wearing something in your ear.
Exactly right. Yeah. That's the key. And so so for all of those things, there is a point where, and I was talking to Universal last week about a codec. It's a point where that has to be really good, and then there's a point that we at Sonos have to make sure that that just is pure and comes out into the home how you want it to be.
All right. So in that direction, the home listening experience has evolved a lot in the last decade. Now with a single speaker like the Era 300, you can fill a whole room with spatial sound and immerse the listener into the experience. Thanks to Dolby Atmos and spatial sound, etc. What's next? What do you think it will happen with sound listening experiences in domestic terms in the next, 5 years, for instance?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I think you have to think of sound as not just being music and communication, for example.
Right.
If you can have someone in the room with you, like the great thing about three-dimensional sound is it's more natural. So, for instance, I did this Peter Jackson Get Back film, and I mixed Let It Be, which is a famous Beatles song. If you listen to the Atmos mix of Let It Be, the walls which are around you are the walls of the studio that Paul is in. Okay, so which means that when you listen to the Atmos mix compared to the stereo, they both have the same amount of space, reverb on them. But what happens with the Atmos mix is that he's in the room with you. Okay, so how do you paint the walls with sound? Exactly. So my father used to say when he made Sgt. Pepper's, we want to paint the walls with sound. And so how do you do that then? Do you have constellation speakers? So it's a bit like, do you have lots of small speakers in your house, which people don't want, or do you have an Era 300, which can, and so I think, to answer your question, I think what we'll see in the home is increased flexibility. So people being able to put speakers where they want to put them. Reduction in size of speakers, because people don't want to see their speakers.
Yes.
They want to. That's the thing. That's what we work hard towards, creating units that create more power out of a smaller box, so people don't, it's that you want them to disappear.
So you think speakers are going to get smaller in size?
I think speakers will get smaller in size, yeah. And I think so, definitely. I think you want to give people freedom of choice. Sure. We talk about all the time. We're talking even now. We're constantly talking about products. Even though it's like, how do you create products which are versatile, that can be used for a number of different functions? It can be, and that's the. So a good example of the Ace is like, people start using these headphones, for, for instance, I think gamers will use them a lot, and as we roll out the True Cinema and the switch to our lesser priced sound bars,
yes,
then it'll be more of a package for people to use the headphones and that sort of stuff. So I think it's come out with flexibility. It's come up with, and that's what I always think about with Sonos is, how do we push boundaries? How do we make things more just so the consumer can use products in different ways?
Excellent. Now I have a ton of questions for you, but let me ask you just one more question, which is, what do you think of the music industry nowadays? It has shifted so much in the last 25 years, to say something. There are no rock bands like they used to be. Actually, the bands that you just mentioned, that you were remixing.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. It's funny. I think I do think about it. So I was with name drop. I was with Paul McCartney last week.
Yeah.
I was with him on, what day were we? I was with him on Thursday. He's 82 years old. He's still amazing. And we sat and you suddenly think there's a generation of artists that are, I work with Elton quite a lot, and they're old. They're really, I mean, they should, like they are beyond even being 40 and doing it. They're 82 and doing it. And I think I have two daughters who are 14 and 16. They listen to they listen to Rumours by Fleetwood Mac. They're obsessed because also Daisy Jones and the Six was a big series on Netflix. That's like a Fleetwood Mac thing. And my daughter said to me, she goes, "Dad, when you retire," I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Maybe you could work with a band like Fleetwood Mac." She thinks when I stop making headphones or stop doing films, or I could go, because I do a lot of, I basically do Sonos, and I generally make lots of films, and I mix Beatles and others. I don't record bands anymore. And I think it'll change, is the answer. I think it'll change. I think there's room for everything and everywhere. And I think that one of the issues we have is the way people listen, where my kids listen. It's really interesting for me. It's like, that's when my approach, if I'm mixing, I did Revolver, was the last Beatles album I did. Paul McCartney is 25 years old when he's singing Alan Rigby, okay? He'll always be 25. That's a time capsule. He's younger than Ed Sheeran is now, okay? So my approach to when I do an album like that, or I did Pet Sounds last year as well, but my approach to do an album like that is, these are the people, this is their age. So when my daughters listen to, they think the Arctic Monkeys are the same era as Fleetwood Mac, for example, because because they're just basically, they listen to something on TikTok, and they take it, and they don't know, and there's I love that, actually. I think that's great. I think because music is music, it's boundless, and it doesn't matter whether you're listening to Drake or Mozart. It's
I agree.
But I think as far as live performance goes, it's become too bloated. It's become too Taylor Swift charging $600 for a ticket.
What do you think, for instance, what Neil Tennant said about Taylor Swift?
What did you say?
He was like, Taylor Swift doesn't have a Billie Jean.
Neither did Neil Tennant, to be fair. But no, he didn't. But I don't know. I wouldn't be into criticizing. I think that, I took my daughter. This was last year. I took my daughter to go see Harry Styles in concert, and we went to the mosh pit, like with the front bit.
You did?
Yeah. And it was me. I'm like 6'4", okay? So I like standing about, like, it's actually quite a funny story. I'm standing, and I've got my daughter and her friends, I'm holding their coats and popcorn and glass, and all these girls, like, I'm standing there with these things jumping around me. And I'm not a parent that goes, God, we need to leave before the traffic. So I'm thinking, we're in this, right? We're in this, man. We're going to stay till the end. We're going to have this.
The whole experience.
Yeah, the whole experience. We're going to do that. And we're like, let's, and they loved it. They loved it. And it's so easy to be an old person and go, people don't care about music like they used to. A friend of mine's daughter loves Taylor Swift. So don't criticize it. To be passionate about something is fantastic. It's like Neil Tennant should just shut up and go away if he's going to criticize people. My thing is that it shouldn't cost $600 for a ticket to go and see an artist. That's my issue. And I think that, and here's the funny thing about Harry Styles, is I did an interview with Rolling Stone magazine the week after, and the guy actually he lives in New York. He said to me, he goes, "How was your Harry Styles gig?" I went, "Yeah, it was fine." I said, "How do you know I went to Harry Styles?" He goes, "Because I interviewed Harry Styles last week, and he said he saw you in the audience." Wow. I'm like standing there. He goes, and my daughter goes, "He kept on looking at me." I was like, "I think he's looking at you. I think maybe he's looking at me. I'm not quite sure." Anyway, but I think that I'd like to see in the situations where I see it happen with my kids that like they want to be in bands, and I say to them, it's so much fun being in a band and creating music and doing those things. And I think it'll change. I think we go through phases. The issue is with social media and the explosion of things that happens now, with the obsession of like everyone wants to be the same.
But again, new generation that don't listen to albums anymore. They just listen to single tracks.
I know vinyl's coming back. It's interesting. It is coming back, and people, I think that I'm always hopeful. That's my job. I'm a futurist. I'm always thinking, building products. I was thinking, how do we build the best thing ever? And I think that there is something about air being pushed. Like my best experiences in sound have not been anything to do with. I made the Love Show in Vegas, 7,000 speakers in a room. My best was I was in Japan, and I had Joni Mitchell sitting in front of me, and she sang and played song and played the guitar, and she sang Hejira, and it was like, it's like I didn't know where the sound was coming from. It was just a beautiful thing, and I knew that no matter if you took a child and trained them to be like, you know, the Suzuki technique, trained them to be Joni, it would never happen. But it's just a God-given. It's that spiritual God-given thing, and I think there's always going to be room for that. There's always going to be people doing things that are extraordinary, and when that happens, generations will go, "Oh my God, that's." And I hope that's the case. It's just the exposure to them and how that works. But I do think there's going to be incredible talent out there. I think there will be incredible bands. I really do. There's stunning musicians around. I just think we just go through cycles.
Hopefully so. You are a believer. Now, one little final question. Among all the latest albums you have remixed, particularly, how was the experience with Pet Sounds, considering your background?
Yeah, Pet Sounds was amazing. I never thought, you know, I'm always surprised, continuously surprised when people approach me to go and work on. It was weird. I was doing Revolver, and then I did Pet Sounds. I was sort of stuck in 1965, 66. Yeah, it was, you know, I tell you what the thing about Pet Sounds is you realize how good Brian Wilson was or is. And my father, I once said to my father on a plane when I started working with him, I said, "It's amazing what you did with the Beatles." And he said to me, "It's not as amazing as what Brian Wilson did." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, Brian Wilson, the Beatles had me and I had them, but Brian Wilson, he had himself." And Pet Sounds, the breakdown of Pet Sounds is it's kind of weird. It's like almost 6-track, but there's 3 main tracks of instruments. And even though there's loads of instruments on Pet Sounds, there's 3 main clusters, like a group of instruments, and they're all playing. Everyone's playing at the same time, like an orchestra. That's what Pet Sounds is. There's so many different instruments going on Pet Sounds, but they're all playing together. And sometimes there'll be 2 basses playing or 3 basses, and people think that we live in a world of overdubbing. You know, we live in a world of layering material layering tracks on tracks on tracks, but Pet Sound isn't that. It's so complicated, but so complicated in its writing and its performance. And that's the thing that's drawing about Pet Sounds. So that makes sense. It's the closest pop record that's like an orchestra playing. Pet Sounds.
Yes, Teenage Symphonies.
Yeah, it is. That's how it is, and it's that. It's funny. It's that ability. I mean, you know, I think Dre and the hip hop, the LA hip hop revolution, did this, where they started playing around with different sounds to create things.
I agree.
Pet Sounds did that, like creating content. You know, it's and the Beatles did it obviously, but creating textures that we just accept as being part of a song, which have never been part of a song again. Actually, go back to Eleanor Rigby. Why is Eleanor Rigby a Beatles song? It's just a string. Actually, it's an octet, not a quartet, playing, and Paul McCartney singing. But if you think of another record that's like that isn't classical, it's the only pop song like that isn't classical. Does that make sense? So, and I think that I look at music now, and I hope that we do live in a world of mediocrity, sadly. And you watch that Bowie documentary, and you see him performing in the Ziggy Stardust tour, and you see this guy on stage, and he's like this androgynous. You know, we live in a world of relaxed pronouns, which is great, and all that sort of stuff. But David Bowie's like, what is he? Is he an alien? Is he a man? Is he a woman? It's very risky. And then you look at the audience. The audience are like 14-year-old girls, 15-year-old girls, and it's funny how we think we live in a more liberal society now. I'm not sure whether we do. I love the way we're breaking down barriers of bigotry and hate and all that sort of stuff. But I think in the arts world, I think we could free things up a little bit more.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
A real
pleasure. Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Muchas gracias.